Recording. Enlightenment is a destructive process. It has nothing to do with becoming better or being happier. Enlightenment is crumbling away the untruth. It is seeing through the facade of pretense. It is a complete eradication of everything we imagined to be true. Friends, this is the Formless Podcast, number 89, with Tyler, the superhuman, and me, Dustin. Today we're joined with 7-time or 6-time Joe. Last time I introduced you as 6-time Joe as well. But yeah, that's on me. I didn't count.
We'll have to go back and
I can't count.
We'll have to go back and count.
Anyways, that quote I read as I was reading it, I was like, I'm not sure that I agree with it, but it was interesting and it made me think.
I agree. I was like, I don't know. I mean,
but it's in a way of like breaking down your preconceived notions. Go ahead. You can go into something with those thoughts that you have, like, oh, this is the way things have lined out, and then as you get through it, I think that's what the guy was trying to get to. Like, as you move on and progress through something, you find that your preconceived notions or the way you had it thought out in your head isn't working the way it rolled out. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I took that from. I think I've gone ahead. I have hundreds of quotes that I've written down and movie phrases and song lyrics and stuff, and I've written all these out, and I just go through and randomly pick one. And I can't remember where that came from, but I for whatever reason at the time I read it and I was like, oh, that's a good one, you know. But now that I've read it again, I'm like, I wonder, you know. So anyway, how's everybody doing today?
Having an awesome day.
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
Yeah. We're getting a lot of weird weather around here for being January of 2025. Like, it's almost like feels like spring.
I went up to Weaverville Thursday for work. Yeah, and you know, it was clean. I go early in the morning. It was absolutely beautiful, clear day. It was a little chilly here in town. When I got to Weaverville, it was 24 degrees.
Wow.
It was cold, man. Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah. So last time, Tyler was out doing movie stuff. Oh no, you were going to school. You were doing your EMT school.
Right.
And Joe bailed us out and was a co-host, and we talked a little bit about your military history, or
We talked a lot
about your military history.
Yeah.
And this is kind of is this a good segue to come back to that? Because
Yes.
at this point in your military career, Tyler came into the picture, or right around there, right?
He was a little bit earlier because when we left off, we had just come back from Kosovo.
Okay.
So we're looking at January 2006, and actually you're involved with it next little bit. But first, I need to do a couple of corrections from last time because it's been driving me nuts ever since I listened to it. I had a brain cramp on what RSP stands for, Recruit Sustainment Program, the program that's been in place for quite a while, where recruits, before they finish basic and advanced individual training, have their own drill dates away from the regular unit, so we're not in each other's ways, and they kind of get used to the military culture before they go to basic. Did you do RSP?
I don't know if they had it or didn't have it at the time back in 2003 when I joined, but I did not have that. That was I just went to drill like with everyone else. Like they had like an individual drill, but it wasn't with the unit. And it was like for people joining, but it wasn't yet the RSP program.
So proto RSP.
Yeah, I guess.
And the more egregious one that's really been killing me was I completely goofed on the role of Tennessee in the American Civil War. Tennessee did join the Confederacy. They were the last to join and the first to rejoin the Union, so they really weren't into it, sort of. But
they were just testing the waters.
The western county where my family, the Llewellyn family, lived was very against joining the Confederacy. They were not sending. None of my Llewellyn ancestors fought for the Confederacy. Not so much on my mother's side, but on my father's side, there's no Confederate veterans in my family, because they wanted to break away from Tennessee the way West Virginia did with Virginia. So anyway, I had to get that out of the way. That's been killing me for about a month.
Get it on the record.
Get it on the record. I'm not an idiot. I was just wrong. But so here we go. It's now January of 2026, 2006. Back from Kosovo. I learned something from my Utah deployment is I didn't go right back to work. I took a month off. I went back east. I saw my stepdad. I saw my dad. I saw my grandparents. I decompressed, particularly after, that Kosovo mission had its moments, good and bad. I dealt with some really difficult people. I did okay. I managed to get through without losing rank or, got an Army Achievement Medal out of it. So, didn't fight anyone, and even though there was a couple there I wanted to. And anyway, I'm back.
So to add to that, like what you brought up, Dustin, what you wanted to talk about, what was your thing about overlaying?
Oh, yeah.
Retroactively, because then what you're just talking about right then, you can look at from that perspective.
So now that you guys have been training for a while, like, do you think that the martial arts stuff that you have learned, all of the stuff that you have learned since training, do you think that would have changed your outcome of your military had you done martial arts before the military?
Like you just said, dealing with those difficult people on the Kosovo deployment.
Right. And what we also said earlier, was, the two things it would have really helped with was confidence and physical fitness. I'm not a physical fitness. I've always been not mediocre. I've always been kind of on the low end of the acceptable. The minimum is my maximum, sort of. But martial arts, and I actually, before I retired, I passed the new physical fitness test with no profile, no alternate events because of this place, because of getting myself in shape at 55. But anyway, but as far as the confidence, dealing with some of the more difficult people, my 3rd platoon, 1st squad leader, 1st platoon, or 3rd platoon, 2nd squad leader, 3rd squad leader, because I was a platoon sergeant, I was a temporary platoon sergeant, the LT, the 1st sergeant, some of the characters in the talk after I was exiled to the front office, and I just use initials, JS and CG, and I'll tell you afterwards if you're trying to remember who those guys were. One of them, Jerry S. That guy. Anyway, so I would have been in better shape. I would have definitely had,
if you would have done martial arts,
physically, but more importantly between my ears. And how I interacted with people and how I let them interact with me.
Well, and it's too, like, back then on that Kosovo deployment, you were probably like, what, 37, 38?
Yeah.
So about my age right now, right? That's 2006.
Yeah, I was 38.
So you were 38, and so, like, but, like, now how old are you? You're 57?
I'll be 58 next month.
So you're 57. Yeah, so that's looking back on yourself 20 years ago and being like, but then if you would have done martial arts back then, that it might have, you just would have been in better shape between your head, like you said, or however you worded it.
Yeah, between the ears.
Between the ears, yeah.
But it's, and as important, as being physically fit to be a soldier, to do that work is very important. it's what's between the ears that matters. Because you can be as strong as an ox, but if you're dumb as an ox,
you're going to find yourself in trouble.
You're gonna have some problems.
Well, that's funny you bring that up, because like I always thought of it as like, in here, a lot of times you hold your feet to the fire. Like you do things, and sometimes it gets a little hairy.
Yeah.
And it's like you get bumps, and you get kicked, and you get punched, and like when you do that for a while, you get acclimated to it. You know what it's like to be punched in the teeth. You know what it's like to get kicked in the groin. Those things are uncomfortable, and they don't feel good. And when you don't do that for a little bit, and then you get back into it, it takes you a little while. When you quit training, it takes you a little bit to get back into that flow, that routine. And when you've been doing it for a while, you're kind of like, oh yeah, I know what that's like. And you're like more ready. Yeah. You're just more
prepared,
aware. Prepared is a great word. What did you think? The same question applied to you. What do you think that would have changed anything for you?
Oh, I'm with Joe on that. Absolutely, 100%. It would have changed the confidence and the physical fitness, because like Joe said, how'd you put it? The low end of acceptable.
Low end of the minimum is my maximum. The minimum. The guys always, I maxed out my PT test, 300 points, everything like that.
Yeah.
I'm a solid 180.
No, I agree. I think doing martial arts has completely changed everything about my diet and about just fitness. It just has made, it's almost been like, it makes more sense for me to go to the gym now doing martial arts, or workout, just any type of workout, because you need to be in shape to do it. And that would have translated to the military. And then also to just being younger and you just, Joe and I can both look at ourselves and say, well, we were both younger when we were in the military. Yeah. Back then, we were both 19 years younger, 20 years this year. Yeah. We got there and to Kosovo, and I think I and Joe would have been definitely a lot less to get steamrolled over. I don't know if that's the right word, or pushed around. Not pushed around, kind of.
Yeah, I'll say pushed around, and for the context.
Not that it happened all the time.
No, absolutely, it did not happen all the time.
Instances,
certain things. To understand, both of us were attachments. We were not part of the home unit. That unit was Alpha Company 578th Engineers out of Glendale and Riverside down in Southern California. We were the other guys.
So you were like the helpers of the helpers.
Right, because no guard unit has enough people to deploy ever. So they always have to pull from other units. And both of us have gone on deployments as the other guys, Kosovo, and both of us went. Actually, you were attached to 235th as well, because you came out of Reading.
Well, I was put into the unit, but I wasn't native to that.
So you were not native to the 235th.
Oh, okay. So like they had the home group that like they all knew each other, and you were like this outsider kind of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so you guys probably got all the crap work
initially, and there's a lot. And throughout the deployment, and there's a lot of other guys. Like Joe and I coming from the Reading unit, so we kind of had our friendship, and because we're like, well, we're the Reading guys, even though we're inside this other unit for this deployment.
Oh, okay.
Right. They joked, and I am a redheaded stepchild by the virtue of
actual
one. But I think me and Sergeant Brodus were talking one time, and I basically, how many degrees of redheaded stepchildness was I? Actual redheaded stepchild attached to the unit from another unit. I was actually by training a 12 Charlie Bridge engineer instead of a 12 Charlie Bravo combat blow stuff up engineer. It's just like multiple.
So you just had like strikes right from the get-go.
Yeah. Squared, cubed, to the 5th power, to the 6th power.
So what do you think, Joe, then, like, going back, so like now we're in early 2006, right? And we just got back, like, so what was next that you were saying?
Yeah, I went back east. I saw Pops. I saw my dad. I saw my grandparents. I dialed it down. I relaxed. I decompressed. Which I did not do last time. Also, death of my mom, everything like that. So I came back after Utah with a lot of stress on my plate. I was smart. I got smarter, and I came back relaxed. I went back, worked with the same supervisor that I was working with before, that I was having a lot of issues, and it was night and day. She changed, I changed. We got a much better relationship and a much more successful one. I always said, I was like thinking I was exiting that place, or I felt like I was really in a lot of trouble in 2004. I've talked to the director, the lady who was the director at the time, and Terry had told me, Joe, we weren't going to get rid of you. We were going to keep you. We were going to figure it out. And I trust her and I believe her on that one. I have a lot of admiration and respect for Terry every day of the year. So anyway, but yeah, so I came back. So having dealt with the Alpha Company guys and back to my civilian job, having relaxed, and it was night and day. It was night and day.
So like the gift of perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's another guy, he's retired, just fantastic dude, Mike. He's a Marine Corps Vietnam vet. He was also an LAPD cop. And so he moved up here, and working at our office, he was just kind of like his retirement job before he finally pulled the plug on everything and was done. So, I mean, just as you can imagine, he is a hero to me and just a real role model. I will never be as cool as Mike, but
something to live up to.
Something absolutely to strive for. But he said, he told me, I knew you'd come back and you'd be better off. Because going overseas and growing up at 38, I grew up a little bit at 38, and it made a world of difference in the success of my civilian career.
So one more question. So Kosovo wasn't exactly, when you guys went, it wasn't exactly a war zone at the time. It was more of like the aftermath, right?
Correct.
So you were doing, because you had spoke earlier about it, and I know you've told me a little bit about it. You guys were like peace enforcers, I think.
Peace enforcers.
That was the word
key
you
term.
used.
Key term.
So you weren't like getting necessarily shooting at people, but you were just kind of there and like seeing all of the aftermath of everything. Buildings blown up, people, and all of that. So that.
I mean, yeah. There wasn't all the stuff that happened. There was, I think, 98, 99, 2000, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't quote me on those years, but so we were there 5 years after all the shooting stopped.
There's a lot of animosity, though.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of tension. There's a lot of crap, and like it's kind of like the aftermath of a big house party. Now it's time to clean up.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, make sure everybody's out of the house, and like all the pizza boxes and the vomit and the spilled beer is all cleaned up, you know? And I'm sugarcoating this, obviously, like, but
that's a good way to put it.
You're like, you're going through and cleaning up, making sure there's nobody out still trying to come to the party.
Yeah.
Right. And it's up to the Kosovars to clean up their mess. We weren't there to, there's resources. We from home, soccer balls and school supplies and stuff like that, but ultimately it was up to the inhabitants of Kosovo to clean up their own mess. We were just there to make sure they weren't killing each other.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
we didn't occupy. We weren't occupiers. They had their own government.
Was it, sorry, not to interrupt, but was it part of the UN deal? Like, was it the UN or was it just the US in there?
Oh no, it was NATO, and we had Filipino, because June, your platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Alonzo, there's sometimes Filipino UN guys on the base, and he would meet up with them you know, he'd get some supplies, some food.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, the pork and the rice.
There was like, different countries had their in Kosovo, I want to say it was divided up into several different, they were called MNBs, Multinational Brigade East, and then Multinational Brigade West. I think there was
Central, North, South.
Okay, so you had multiple
nations had troops there. Like, I worked with Germans, I worked with Swedes, I worked with Swiss, I worked with Finnish.
The Poles?
Polish, I worked with those guys in Afghanistan. So the Poles are those guys were cool.
Right on.
Polish guys are cool.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Hashtag
get us off.
Polish soldiers.
I didn't mean to get us off track. I just was my curiosity got to me there.
If you ask a question, it could be the folks out there are asking the same question.
That's
fine.
Okay, right.
You're the voice of the audience.
Perfect.
So you got decompressed and
then back to work, and then we have a training room there at the office, and there's people coming in and out, and I was kind of going in and out of the training room to get, because while I was gone, we got a different computer system and just reacquainting myself with the job. And I saw this lady, I was going out on a break, I saw this lady coming in, and she had 2 blue stars on the back of her station wagon. And I said, oh, you got family deployed? I just came back from a deployment, and we're chit-chatting. Her sons were overseas, and she told me about families honoring our troops. We're going to do a Support the Troops rally on March 19th, 2006. I thought, well, I support the troops, and I'm one of them. I thought, I'll probably go there. So I marked it on my calendar, and it was a Sunday. The weather was nice, and I just, I was like, stay home, play video games, or go out there. So I went out there. Had my new truck. I bought a 2003 Ford Ranger. Is the nicest vehicle I'd ever owned to that point. Certainly the newest with my Kosovo money. And I ran into Tyler and his mom. And oh great, there's someone. How you doing?
Annette is her name. Annette.
Yeah,
somebody you know.
Yeah, Annette hooked up. The very wonderful Annette hooked up, and Tyler. And then shortly thereafter, here comes Tyler's cousin Tisha, and Tyler and Tisha's grandmother. And so that's the day I met Tish.
And I had been talking about my cousin. When we were in Kosovo, I'd mentioned to you, right, a couple times. I said,
I think you're trying to hook her up with someone else. I think with Richard C.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't ever say that to you and be like, hey, I've got a single cousin.
I would have remembered that, I think.
I thought I did, but maybe I didn't. I don't know.
I think there's someone else, but, slightly younger than me. But anywho, but I know you can, because you went out, you guys, I think, went out to John Berg's afterwards. All I know is talking with her and everything like that, I thought she was cute. And I went to help tear down the Easy Up, and in my back of my mind, I specifically remember, I hope Tyler's cousin sees me working and thinks that's cool. Over to you.
Right on.
Because you can say because you work with her, she basically she tells me right then and there, she says, I'm going to marry that guy. Or something like that.
I don't know. I remember that day, and I remember definitely going to Jamba Juice, and Tish was all excited and fired up, and just like
talking about Joe.
Yeah, she just had that look like I'm excited to see this person and hang out and do something with them. It was just excited, almost talking nonsensically a little bit.
No. And then
in a good way.
And then, but we, for various reasons, that was March, April, May. We didn't see each other again until May, and it was at the Reading Rodeo, and it was just before drill, because you and I went up to Mount Shasta. But I sat with her for 2 hours at the Reading Rodeo because Annette had arranged. They wanted some local soldiers to be there for the national anthem.
That's right.
That's that. And then,
so you were all there in your army uniform
at the rodeo.
Yeah, the duty uniform, nothing fancy. And I went there Thursday, and she was doing something else. But I saw you, and then he said, "Hey, my cousin Tish is going to be here tomorrow." I said, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I'll see her tomorrow." And then I get there, I ran a little bit late. I get there and there's Ed and Adam there, and Adam says, Pokup's cousin is here looking for you. She's really good looking, or something like that. So Ingram said that. I said, oh, really? So afterwards, because she was all dressed up. Because when I saw her in March, she was, shorts and her usual shorts, t-shirt, heavy jacket, casual.
Right.
So when I saw her in May, she was all in her, nice jeans, nice blouse, good makeup, cowgirl hat, sort of cleaned up. I was like, wow. And we traded phone numbers then. I said, I will call you when I get back in town. And I did. And then up in Mount Shasta, Tyler, tell me about your cousin. And that's when I found out her history. And then I called her Sunday when I got back, like I said I would. We set up a date that Wednesday. And 10 days later, I proposed to her.
Wow.
Because I was 39, she was 34. I knew I had a beautiful, quality woman who was interested in me. I would be foolish and idiotic to not, go forward.
So you did learn something from Kosovo.
Yeah. I just like
strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah. She wanted to know when I was free for a date, which is generally not how it works. Oh, are you free for a date? Oh, no. She was asking me. She was trying to sync up her schedule with me. So that told me everything I needed to know.
Right on.
And she checked the boxes. Long-term employment, no drugs, no smoking, didn't seem crazy.
Had a driver's license, had a checking account.
Yeah.
No kids?
No kids. And honestly, at 39, I dated single moms. That seemed to be, I kind of thought at this point in my life, if I do end up with someone anywhere close to my age, a stepkid comes along. She's a unicorn. She was a unicorn. You don't see those that often. Get them. And we've been married 18 years. 2 kids.
Right on.
After 10 days, he proposed.
Yeah, and I work
10 days.
And the type of social work that I do deals with broken families and everything like that. So it's like I should know better, but my heart overrode my head. But there's also some solid logic there too. Logic.
There was no red flags.
There's no red flags. I mean,
She came highly recommended.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's not a joke. She came from a great family because I have much admiration for you and for Annette. So that was another big green plus.
Right on.
Not a red check mark or a red X.
If Joe would have been a black belt at the time and been doing martial arts, he may have beat his own record and did it in 7 days.
Yeah.
6 days.
Yeah. Gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers.
Yeah. Right on. That's awesome.
Okay. So October we got married. Moved down to the ranch. I think, and then within a few months, Tish and I were driving down the highway. I got a call from First Sergeant Paul Thompson saying, Joe, pull over. Where are you? I'm driving. Pull over. You didn't want me to crash. So I pulled over on the side of the road and he told me I was getting promoted to Sergeant First Class, which is E7. That's a big step. I'm a senior non-commissioned officer. Personally, that was a big deal to me because my stepfather retired as a Sergeant First Class.
Oh, cool.
So so that was kind of a big deal, and it's a great rank. I mean,
so at that point, you come back from Kosovo. You'd been home this entire time, or you've still been going out for your
1 weekend a month.
1 weekend a month, but there hadn't been any activity other than your 1 weekend a month training.
No, we were transitioning the unit back to bridge engineering. So being one of the original prior 12 Charlies, my expertise, my knowledge was definitely needed for that transition. There's like maybe five of us from the previous unit who are still sticking around. Sergeant Applin kept calling us the Fab Five or the Fabulous Five in not a complimentary way.
So then it's quiet essentially.
Yeah.
You're just doing your thing.
Just living civilian life and going to drill 1 weekend a month, working the civilian job.
Yeah, and that carried on for a while.
And what are you doing this whole time? You're going to school?
Yeah, I started Shasta College. Yeah, after we got
okay.
back from Kosovo, I started Shasta College and was doing just going to Shasta College and studying general ed and cramming in theater classes.
Okay.
In preparation for film stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because we saw a few, at least one play, the Arkansas one.
Yeah, Big River, where I sang on stage. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, Big River, about Tom Sawyer and Huck Finn.
Oh, right on.
And then I'm just going to drill, and then let's see, about 2010, and you went off to Afghanistan. So if we're gonna go chronologically, we either go me or we're gonna pinball back.
No, it's about you. Yeah,
Okay.
you and I mean you had your daughter and everything.
Yeah. Grace was born in 2008, and we actually, about a month before she was born, we actually got our own house because we were living at the ranch, the off the grid built in the 1880s ranch house.
1920s.
1920s.
As far as I know.
Okay. But yeah, just not conducive to newborn. And so we got our own place 2008, and then about 2010, a couple of things. One, something called a periodic health assessment happened, and I made the mistake of telling them, I have some back issues and everything like that, and I got put on basically a dead man's profile where I couldn't do any physical fitness. For 6 months I couldn't even drill, which was very bad, cost me a lot of money, and at the same time, basically TJ shows up, or was coming, and I finally got med boarded. I wasn't there in person, my paperwork, and they basically found me fit for duty because as a sergeant first class, my duties are supervisory. I'm not out there lifting heavy things. I'm telling people to lift heavy things. I mean,
so med boarded. You're speaking some language I don't understand.
Medical retention board. So they basically decide.
Because you said, "Hey, my back's bothering me."
Yeah, and I got a very excessive profile that was beyond. I mean, because I still passed the physical fitness test. I got a profile where I didn't have to run the 2 miles. I had to walk 2.5 in a certain amount of time. But I'm still doing my push-ups and my sit-ups. So basically decided, am I too broken to continue to work?
Gotcha.
Or we're going to keep you.
Because they don't want to be liable if you're...
Exactly.
Okay.
Luckily, our brand new commander, then First Lieutenant Ricks, now Colonel Ricks, R-I-X, wrote a very nice letter saying I am key person because of my knowledge of 12B and 12 Charlie. That really helped. And then, I didn't actually do a physical, where they checked me out or anything. It was up at Fort Lewis. And the day after Christmas, I got word that they retained me. And then shortly thereafter, dun dun dun. Oh, and it said, and he is eligible for deployment. He can be deployed.
Oh.
And then a few months later, dun dun dun, started to hear the rumors that we were going to Afghanistan. And I was hearing it from reliable sources. My standard is always, if rumors are going around, did you hear from the first sergeant or the commander? If you don't hear from those two people,
it's not happening.
It may happen, but it's not confirmed.
And so what time period was that?
2010.
Okay.
And then because I got back, because I started drilling again and getting that money, and just in time for TJ to come along in February 2010. And I think certainly by the end of 2010, it was a go. We were going with the target 2012. So most of 2011, I think there's 52 weeks in a year. I think 23 of those weeks I spent in uniform, away from my job. 2 annual trainings, two annual trainings down at Camp Roberts, doing the SRP and the train up you do at Camp Roberts, which is down in the back end of Monterey County by Paso Robles. I went to EO school down in San Diego. That was interesting for a week because I was one of the EO equal opportunity officers. And then rolling into January of 2012, I basically did the math and I stopped working. I spent a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks just off work because I had enough vacation built up.
Mm-hmm.
I burned all my vacation because one thing, if something happened to me, that vacation does me no good.
Yeah.
So
burn the vacation off before the deployment. Yeah.
Burn it off, and then my military leave. So I got to double dip for a while and then my military leave through the county because I get 30 days, which translates into 6 weeks of the county.
So all basically relaxing and getting ready to go.
Out
country.
spending as much time with my family as I could.
And at this point,
And we went back east. So my dad and my granddad, my dad and my stepdad got it because my stepdad hadn't made the wedding because he takes care of his now wife who's severely disabled.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to see Pops, and then we drove up, saw my dad. So I wanted to see my dad's before I left. So I know that was a big part of my pre-deployment plan, was to see my father's. And then in February 21st, got on a plane, went to Fort Dix.
So, and at this point, you had already left for Afghanistan?
Well, at this point, I spent 2009 in Afghanistan, 2009.
Okay.
So then I came back and was just doing my 1 weekend a month, and then long story short, you do a tour overseas and you come back and you're ineligible to get deployed for a certain amount of time, and so I didn't have to deploy with I was in the Reading Guard unit with Joe, and we were back drilling and training together.
Okay.
But I didn't have to deploy.
Because you had already deployed
previously, and I was within a 2-year window or something like that. Yeah, a 2-year window when you come back from your deployment and your orders, and you've got 2 years where you're ineligible to deploy, or you have the choice to deploy if you want, but you don't have to. And so I was like, no, I want to go to college. I joined the Army for college money. I want to use that college money. So I was down to San Jose State while they were training up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and perfectly acceptable. You were in sanctuary. You were untouchable. And after your deployment, I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
Because that was right after 9/11 when you went?
No, I went in 2009.
Okay.
2009. So
Okay.
8 years later.
You need a whole podcast and for Tyler to tell his story because
We dabbled in it a little bit.
up to Kosovo, but I want to hear Afghanistan. I want to hear your Afghanistan story.
I concur.
Okay. So
we go to Fort Dix. I hate Fort Dix. I hate soldiers there. I think it's First Army. I hate those guys. We had harder, tougher training going to Kosovo, where no one shot at us, than we did going to Afghanistan. I'm not being political. I just find them incredibly worthless. Plus, I'm not super physically fit, but those are the fattest officers and sergeants I've ever seen. I'm in the National
We're
Guard.
gonna get hate
And
mail,
these
man.
active duty guys, have a BMI of 50, and I'm just like, I'm not putting up with that. Well, I had to, but anyway, I'm talking crap about them. And then, so Fort Dix, we did training, and then we went back to Fort Leonard Wood. And this is like the second time I've been back to Fort Leonard Wood since basic training time, because that was one of our things we did. I think in 2011, one of my many times in uniform was a trip to Fort Leonard Wood to work on engineering type stuff. Then we went back again, and then from Fort Leonard Wood, because they kept saying you have to fly back to Fort Dix and then fly to Afghanistan, and Captain Rick was saying that's stupid. And so we actually flew out of to Afghanistan from Missouri. So And then, so 2 times. But I will tell you, being in Fort Leonard Wood as a sergeant first class instead of an E1 private is way better.
Totally different, I'm sure.
Totally different. I got good morning sergeant by a staff sergeant, drill sergeant. That was like one of my favorite things. Which is, it's just the greeting of the day, nothing special. Good morning, sergeant. You know.
Well, you're not mud.
No, and the only thing is.
Well, I think for some context for Joe is like Fort Leonard Wood. That's where I went to basic training and then my job training for combat engineer training. So that's where the boot camps are, the basic training.
That's
where you get yelled at, you do push-ups, and I think that's where you went too, right?
I think we're both Alpha 35th.
Alpha 35th, yeah.
Yeah, we went to. I mean, obviously different drill sergeants, but we actually went to the same training company.
Oh, okay.
Like 20 or 19 years apart. I would have been 03, so
87.
87, so 16 years.
Okay.
About.
Yeah.
But so to go back to the same place.
Now you're not mud. You got some rank on you.
It's a weird thing.
It's weird, and they would feed us at one of the basic training because they didn't have like extra dining facilities, mess halls to feed us, so we had to go in and slide in between the basic training companies. So we're going in there, older, scruffier National Guard troops with the basic trainees, and we're not supposed to talk to them or anything like that. But I'm walking through with my tray, and everyone's like seeing me and slamming stop. I said, just keep going. Just keep going.
Oh, because are they supposed to salute?
They're not supposed to. No. I'm a sergeant. They don't salute me. But with that many stripes, it's very scary.
They don't want to do anything wrong.
They're supposed to yell and say, "At ease, make a hole,"
and basically not impede my but
progress.
But they're impeding everyone else.
Yeah.
And no, just keep going, guys. Keep going. and it's just and it got to the point, especially the second time around. I don't think I went back to that defect the last couple of weeks because I kept ordering from Domino's. Because like a pasta bowl or something like that, or pizza. So I started to pack on some pounds, but I was just so tired. I was tired of the defect food. I was tired of dealing.
What's defect?
Dining facility.
Oh, okay.
Dining facility, and I was just tired of being around. Just having to move myself and my unit through. So I might go there for breakfast, but I never ate there at dinner.
Okay.
And we're eating MREs for lunch. Good times. Yeah. So April 2012, we fly east from Missouri into Turkestan. That base just north of Afghanistan. Kyrgyzstan. Thank you. Kyrgyzstan. Stay there for a few days. Get our orientations and whatnot, and then we fly into Afghanistan. And my job then, I was reconnaissance NCO, reconnaissance sergeant was my job title, E7 gig. But we had a surplus of senior NCOs. We packed on some extra ones for LNOs. So we actually had 2 guys in the reconnaissance section. One was a Master Sergeant Steve Brummett. You know him. He was on the Kosovo mission, so he outranks me. So I was kind of surplus. So I got there, and our job for the reconnaissance team was to go inspect the existing bridges. There were several existing bridges around the country. There were a bunch on Highway 1, the big ring road, the big circle that kind of circles Afghanistan, kind of like their I-5. And so every month, one of the platoons would load up with a bunch of parts, and they would drive the highway and repair the bridges there. So we didn't have to inspect those. We were inspecting the bridges off the ring road. I did a number of those with some of different guys from your deployment as well, because some people who did deploy in 09 chose to go on the mission, like Rick C, Rusty C, and those 2 guys, and some other ones. And so I did missions there. The one time I got shot at in Afghanistan was on one of those missions. We were in a helicopter Chinook, which is the big, looks like a bus, but two blades on top. It's about the size of a bus. Chinook C-47. We were landing just landed inside the compound, which is the walls are made of HESCO barriers, which are big giant sandbags. They're frames, so they're squares. You just fill them full of dirt, and you can stack them up, and you make a wall. So you can't take direct fire because direct fire is this, indirect fire is that.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm there with Rick and Rusty and Zach Z Golden.
Zachary Gooden.
Good, thank you. Yeah, good. Actually, his aunt is my boss in my regular job. So was my
Small
job.
world.
Small town. But yeah.
And so you get shot at as you're coming to land.
We didn't know. It's a loud helicopter. I mean, we're not here. We're just passengers.
Yeah.
So I get out and I'm we're grabbing our stuff because we're going to inspect a little bridge there. And this guy waves me over. I come over, there's another sergeant first class, and hey, you're being shot at? And I said, really? Loud helicopter, man. I couldn't hear anything. He said, yeah, he's a long way away. We're sending someone out for him, but we'll send a patrol out for him. We probably won't find him. I said, oh, okay. To this very day, was he messing with me, or was it actually happened? I will never know. I will never know. I'm going to presume it happened. This was active duty. This was 82nd Airborne, All-American, all the way guys. So very storied, famous branch. Was it real, or was he messing with the guard engineer? I don't know. They didn't shoot at us when we did the inspection though, which is just outside their base. And then I checked. Oh yeah, no. We did. I had Gooden wasn't there that day. What we had was a guy named Jim Armstrong. Jim was the Theater Bridge Non-Commissioned Officer in Charge, NCOIC. He was in charge of tracking military bridges for the entire country. He was also in charge of, there's like 4 NATO engineer parks, which is basically just supply dumps full of engineer stuff. Bridge parks, HESCO barriers, all the different things, Jersey barriers, everything you need, to basically build barriers. And so he, just because, he works in an office, he wants to get out. So he said, hey, I want to go on this inspection. And Brumman didn't want to deal with him, so he got to go on one of mine. And so good guy, nice guy. So I asked, Rusty, Rick, and Jim had all earned their combat action badge. You have a combat action badge, which is what you get when you're not an infantry or medical guy if you're shot at. This came about with the Iraq War because MPs, engineers, all kinds of people, truck drivers
were getting shot at,
but they weren't getting the shiny combat infantryman's badge, and the infantry mafia wasn't going to cough up their special thing, so they created the combat action badge.
Okay.
Anyway, these guys already had it, and I believe you don't get one if you're shot at in the air. If you're just a passenger, you actually have to be on the ground. That was my understanding, and it was so, lack of a better word, I'll say baloney, substitute another word. I couldn't even justify myself putting myself in for it. I couldn't do it because it's such, I didn't even know it was happening. I was a passenger in the vehicle, so I never put myself in for it because it was just like so stupid. It would.
You couldn't stand on.
No, I'd be embarrassed to wear it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, nothing against people who have earned it because you definitely earned it. And I wasn't depriving another soldier of that particular piece of metal.
Because the other guys that were with you, they already had one.
They already had one, and at this point, you don't stack them up, you don't get a star, because basically everything from Desert Storm forward is under one group.
It's one medal.
Yeah. So basically, if you saw We Were Soldiers and Young about Vietnam, Sergeant Major Plumley, played by Sam Elliott, he had a combat infantryman's badge with 2 stars. You basically have to do World War II, Korea, and Vietnam to get 2 stars. So if you see someone who's not collecting Social Security wearing 2 stars, he's a liar. He's faking the funk. He's stealing valor. And there's very limited number of people who've earned all 3, and most of them are dead.
Yeah.
So anyway, blah blah blah, getting shot at. But recon was pretty fun. We got to fly all over the country.
So you were in a combat zone,
yes,
but more in the outskirts.
No,
Or did you go into actual?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every time they went, all those bridges aren't there on bases. All those bridges are
out where you could be in trouble.
Out
in unsecured areas.
Unsecured areas. So like when we went out, that's a great point. So when we went out, we weren't just going out there wandering around by ourselves. We would go out. We would like when we landed at that base, and hey, you're being shot at. The local soldiers, the people who owned the land, they don't know, the people responsible for that area. They will send people out, and their job is to secure the area while we do our thing.
Okay.
And then most of the time they're like, yeah, we're gonna go out there and everything like that. If the shooting started, my instructions and everything like that is do what they tell us, don't get in the way, and do what they say. Because we never rehearse with them. Basically, obviously don't stand up looking around.
Cover your butt.
Get yourself down, get under some cover, and do what they say. If they say move, move. So I wasn't, and most of the time I was going out there, I only had a 9mm on me because,
man,
yeah, I look back thinking maybe that wasn't the smartest move, but because you're climbing all over the bridges, carrying a rifle is kind of hard, and if you drop it into the river, that's a little bit of paperwork. Now I'm looking back, would that have been, and later on, it definitely put us in a disadvantage. If something bad had happened, it didn't happen, but I thought this was a mistake.
Yeah.
That was probably one of my most uneasy moments, and we'll get there. So, and it's never really the same team. There's always, someone from the team. I might have, there's Staff Sergeant Clark, some of the junior soldiers.
So it was like a revolving door.
Revolving door. I always kind of have a different team, and Brummett Sergeant Brummett would go out with the team. First inspection we did was me and him because we wanted to see how it was. So we went out, and I was a junior guy as an E7. I was a junior guy on that team. That's the only time I was so I got to carry the tool bag.
You were the junior as an E7.
Yeah, I was a junior NCO as an E7. And we would do that, and then I did another mission with Jim over at Jalalabad or Fenty. It was really interesting because Jalalabad is one big base, and then they have Fenty, and then they have Fenty Shield, which is a smaller base, and that's where the bridge was. So that was closer to the bridge. So you could drive there. It's a very short distance, but because of the danger there, you actually flew there. I flew in. The name of the company is a Canadian beer, Molson.
Molson.
Yeah, Molson apparently diversifies because they also contract, because Molson was the name of the contract. Civilian aircraft is like a little bell, and it's like a 2-minute flight, up, over, down, and then we do the inspection. And Jim was with us again. It was me, Rick, Zach, Gooden, and then Jim Armstrong again. And then he kind of tells me, hey, I might be headed back to the States. That may affect you. I said, oh, okay. And then I get back. I think that was my last inspection.
How could that affect you?
We will get to that.
Okay, sorry.
That's all good. So there weren't any inspections coming up. And one of the things I did, I went out with First Sergeant Thompson, Rick again, the engineer brigade's bridge guy, another sergeant first class A, nice guy. He was the only guy in that brigade I liked. And we went out with the Marines. It was like one of my favorite missions. We rolled out with Charlie Company, 8th Engineer Support Battalion, United States Marine Corps. These were active duty guys. And they were going in we were going in that neighborhood, and I was going out there with First Sergeant and Rick to get measurements, because we were looking at doing a bridge. There's a very long river, very wide river. So that's actually one of my favorite pictures. I'm standing there. I'm holding the laser rangefinder. It looks like a radar gun. Big goofy deployment mustache, smiling. My used car salesman smile, and in back you have the ferry that they're moving goats across the river. Anyway, did that, and then again, when I'm going out with other units, the Marines were, of course, in charge of the security. So they put me in the vehicle. They put me in the front passenger seat, the commander seat. But the corporal who was driving and the lance corporal gunner up top, they were in charge. And I told them, I said, look, anything happens, don't look at me. You do your thing. Absolutely do your thing. You tell me what to do. Because I have no ego when it comes to saving my life.
That's a good policy.
It's a good policy. And I think, and I had my rifle then, because they said, the Marines were like, no, you're bringing your rifle. So I didn't ask. It came down when I was tasked.
It came down the line.
It came down the line. Bring your rifle. So I did. That was pretty cool. And then there's nothing to do. So actually, my section, because we ended up doing some carpentry, we were building some covers to keep the generators in the shade so they wouldn't overheat. And they were, we had, within Camp Leatherneck, we had our own bridge park. And so we had, because all of the vehicles, we had our own gate there and gate guards. So there I was as an E7, and Brummett would do the same thing. So me and Brummett and the other people were doing gate guards. I was doing E7 gate guard. And then one time...
Is that, I would assume that's unusual.
That's
usually a more lower range.
That's definitely a junior enlisted, junior non-commissioned officer gig. But hey, that freed someone else up from working on trucks or getting ready for things. So it helped the unit. And I'm in it to win it. One team, one fight kind of thing. And I had no problem doing it. I thought it was hilarious. I actually thought it was really funny. So I think me and Gonzalez were walking down to the bridge park from where we lived, because it was about like 3/4 of a mile walk from where we lived in the different housing to the bridge park. And then First Sergeant and the CO drive up. Hey, you want to ride? Yes, sir. Hop in. And then Captain Ricks was like, so Sergeant Wetland, you like to travel? Yes, sir. Well, I need you to pack your bags and you're going to Kabul. And I said, oh. And he said, and then you're going to take over for, as a bridge NCO. I see for the theater, you're going to take over for Armstrong. Because Armstrong was Army Reserve. So we're different from National Guard. So Reserve is still federal, but they're part of the big Army. Because the U.S. Army is 3 sections: Active Duty Army, Army Reserve, National Guard. National Guard's different because we're state-based and we have a state chain of command. Army Reserve's not. So they were looking to downsize the Army Reserve footprint, the number of people there. This is in 2012. They're starting, and by 13-14, they'd actually really downsized. And I'm not going to go there. But so Jim was going back to the States. Has some family issues. And instead of pulling another Reserve 12 Charlie back from the States, they particularly because he worked with me and said nice things about me.
They gave you the job.
They gave me the job. And it was a little political because the 411th, the Engineer Brigade there that I told you I didn't like it. Because now I was above them, even though my unit is under them. But now I'm up there in Kabul. So I was above them, so I get there, Jim gets me set up in a place to stay. I had no orders to be there. It was Captain Ricks said, pack your stuff and go. And I went, and that caused some issues later, but Jim took care of me, gave me the training I need. So I'm sitting in an office, I'm part of a group, the mobility section, which is like 6 guys, a German lieutenant colonel, American lieutenant colonel, Army captain, a Marine lieutenant, an Army sergeant, and myself. So yeah, there's 6 of us, and doing different functions. My function was bridging. The Army sergeant and the Marine lieutenant, their job was to field equipment to route clearance basically rollers and minesweepers and stuff like that to route clearance. Captain Olk was in charge of roads. So just everything's for mobility. Mobility means getting
people from one place to another
on the ground.
And so
mobility section, and that was combined joint engineers. And joint means Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Joint. I'm going for a joint mission. That's when you have different services.
Not just the Army or just the Navy.
Exactly.
Whatever.
Whenever you have more than one, you're joint. And we had Air Force, we had Navy, we had Marine, we had Army. There we go. No Coast Guard and Space Force didn't exist then. So plus Afghanistan is landlocked, so they don't have a coastline.
Yeah. So when you get to there, Kabul.
Yep.
So you're doing the same job, but you're just more in like a leadership role.
No, I'm doing something entirely different. I'm just doing spreadsheets and tracking. And
okay. So you're just going down the list and being like, okay, we need to go here, here.
Yeah,
here.
My job was there's X number of military bridges that were built by the military. What could have been built by the Americans. Some of them were built by the Brits, the British engineers, the Royal Engineers, and and some of them were built by contractors, civilian contractors for the military. So I was in charge of that. I wasn't in charge of civilian bridges. The reason why we had all these military bridges is infrastructure is not Johnny Afghan's strong suit. Mm-hmm. Lots of bridges fell down. They have earthquakes there. They're not built very well, and plus there's a war, so they get shelled. They get blown up. So replace,
So you're keeping track of what bridges are still standing, what ones need repaired, all of that.
Everything like that. By annual inspection. So the inspections I was doing, now I'm tracking. Oh, this bridge is coming up for an inspection. This bridge.
We need to schedule this
and everything like that. And the 132nd was doing it. Now there's a particular job when you belong to a unit, but now you're with a higher headquarters liaison officer, LNO. 411 insisted I was not an LNO. You're not an LNO because basically I wasn't the 132nd's representative in Kabul. Because everything I did had to filter through 411 down to the 132nd because 132nd was underneath it. 132nd Multi-Oil Bridge Company, Ready National Guard.
Okay.
My home unit.
Which was in Afghanistan.
They were there, and they were the only. I mean, you had the Marines, but they only did the medium girder bridge, so they weren't doing the big line of communication, metal, shiny bridges that we were doing. We were the only game in town. It was incredibly stupid to say I can't talk to my home unit, particularly because I'm still assigned to them. I'm not assigned to Kabul. Needless to say, I kept talking to them, and it worked out really well because what Captain Rick said is once I got up there, the good idea ferry kind of got eliminated. So bad decisions, questionable decisions coming out of Kabul ended when I got there because I could tell the people there because I was advising the chief engineer and the director of engineering, which is the chief engineer was full Colonel Michel Picard, not Picard. And he was a dude. He's a dude. But he's Belgian. Really nice guy.
With the first name of Michel.
Yeah, Michel Picard. Really great guy. His boss was an American one-star general. So
so you were up there with the and able to communicate.
But as a non-commissioned officer, I'm advising. I'm the subject matter expert. Plus, being from the unit, I know exactly what their capabilities are. That's a good mission for my unit. Yeah. That is a bad mission for my unit.
They can't do that bridge, but they can do this one here.
The biggest one actually came back to the one where I took the measurements. Mm-hmm. They were thinking about doing the ribbon bridge, which is the floating bridge, which requires people to stay on station to keep the boats in place. Problem is, where they put that bridge, right next to it was a fairly decent size population center. I wouldn't call it a city,
but a group of people.
Town that don't like us Because when we were driving in there, they were bouncing rocks off the kids were throwing rocks at us.
So to station people there for a long period of time,
they would be attacked by mortars.
Yeah.
They would be attacked by rockets. They would be attacked by snipers. So if I did nothing else, squashing that
saved lives.
Because then they ended up putting in, because it was very long, because the river in the summertime the river's smaller, but during the wintertime so they ended up doing, because you can go 170 feet with the metal bridges before you have to stack it up, and they didn't want to do that because it uses twice as much material. So they did 170 feet, then built I'm going to draw a blank, bound to dirt with culverts underneath so the water will flow through, because they just built the dirt up, the river will wash it away, but they put the culverts in so the water would go through.
Okay.
And then they built another 170 feet.
Oh, okay.
So essentially they would build, if the river was too wide, they'd put a mound of dirt in the middle so they could
put it upright.
Yeah, just like you see in a bridge here, anywhere you see like pillars across the Sacramento River.
Yeah, and there's
similar thing.
There's a particular word for it, but I've been out of the game. That's 2012, 13 years ago. So, and lots of stuff has happened.
Yeah.
I've gotten a lot older. Anyway, putting floating bridges there, which required people to stay on station, bad idea. And some other stuff, and the folks there realized, hey, Llewellyn knows what he's talking about. It's really good that he knows what his unit does. And I was still now a couple times I was working on a spreadsheet, and it was supposed to basically have the 411 branding all over it, and I sent it down, and I got yelled at, and Captain Ricks got yelled at, and I was told not to do it again, and in the classic, I'm not even supposed to be here. It's like I didn't even want to come here. I worked really hard. Backtracking, I wasn't going to deploy because of my back. I still had a 3 on my profile, so I had to get that changed. I had to actually go up to West Point to see a couple of orthopedic doctors there so they could check me. I actually had a physical examination with my back, and just basically, they had both deployed. They were really cool guys, and they saw how strong I was. And I said, "Oh, this is what I do. I'm really working out." And I said, "I've had issues with my back, but 2 years ago, I lost 30 pounds. So after TJ was born, I lost 35 pounds.
So that helped.
That absolutely helps. Yeah. And so they were like, "Oh yeah," and you're E7, so you're not lifting stuff. So they cleared me to go, and I worked real because I wanted to deploy with my unit. I don't want to go with these other guys. I made some good friends there, some really great guys, but it really wasn't what I signed up for. But I do what I'm told. So anyway. So we got that all worked out and everything like that, and so I'm monitoring the status. I'm doing a spreadsheet every week for the update. Is my little slice of the overall spreadsheet, and I have like 3 different computers. There's ones that's unsecured, secured, really secured. Because one of the things that was a requirement for me to go up there is to have a security clearance. I had a secret security clearance, which means I've been investigated, and they
They deemed you not a terrorist.
Yeah, deemed me trustworthy for this information. And so anyway, it was a good group of people. Oh yeah, combined joint. So joint Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, combined other NATO people. Lieutenant Colonel Blobel, who was the overall head of mobility, German, the German Army. It's really funny. Both his grandfather and my grandfather both fought in World War II.
Oh wow!
Obviously, and his grandfather
different sides.
Different size. His grandfather was on the Eastern Front, lost a leg, so he was fighting the Russians.
Wow!
And and actually, it's kind of really cool guy, and he talked about, we have Veterans Day, Memorial Day, and everything like that. In Germany, they have a day where it's definitely more somber, I forget the name of it, but it's more of an atonement versus, Veterans Day. Obviously, Veterans Day is very big, Memorial Day and everything like that. Their day is a little bit different, obviously, because they're on the losing side. And they were the bad guys. So
Ditto.
Yeah, so we had an older Spanish lieutenant colonel and a couple of younger Spanish captains. Tommy Peeve, P-E-E-V, he was a captain and he was a major from Macedonia. And we drove, you went to Greece, right? Because so we drove through Macedonia.
Yeah, I remember that.
He's a cool guy. And I'm trying to think, and the rest were Americans. It was really, I was the only National Guard guy. I was the only one rocking the 49th MP Brigade patch on my sleeve. That was really cool. My big thing I did besides track all that stuff, Kabul was set up as a bunch of different clusters. The Kabul base cluster. I was based in the airport, which normally would be KIA, Kabul International Airport, but we don't really like that acronym.
Yeah.
So they put an extra A in there, KAIA, Kaya,
Okay.
versus,
Kill in action. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're not doing kill in action.
Did they have the the few times that I went to Kabul, I think I went to Kabul, the military base, I think I went there when we got to country, when I left on leave, when I came back on leave, and then when we left country. And I maybe made it there one time, like we drove into it. I don't quite remember. But the one thing I remember about the Kabul military base was they had a Harley Davidson dealership where you could buy a motorcycle there when I was there.
Really?
Yeah. Now I don't quite, I want to say they had them for sale on the base, but I don't remember quite. Do they? You could buy one, but I don't know if you bought one and then it was back in the States for you, or if you could ride it around the base.
I don't remember that. The airport, because there's two airports. So one was kind of like the bigger international airport where we flew in.
Yeah.
And then there was kind of like a military-ish one, and it was had big concrete barriers and everything
More secure
like that.
kind of thing.
And we had kind of like down on the south end, there's like just a row of shops, and the big one was this place. I don't know if they were knockoffs or they're real from China, but football and baseball jerseys. Because I bought like a bunch of football. I have a Buster Posey Giants jersey, and then I got one for Joe Montana, one for Steve Young, one for Jerry Rice. So I have three,
that you bought in Kabul,
and they're nice. And now I don't like football, but anywho, but I like my Buster Posey jersey, and I got a good Washington Redskins one for my pops for Dad. So I got one for him, and actually some of the guys down at Leatherneck, because I was away from my base, but they would call up and say, or they would email me and say, or call and say, hey, can you get me this, that, or the other, and I'd buy them and either take them there when the next one was in Leatherneck, or give them to someone who's going through, or just mail them. So I did that for a few people. And then kind of my besides tracking everything, the other big thing is there's different clusters. There was Ghazni, because there's two different places that sound like Ghazni. One is further south, and one is within the base cluster. The one that's in the base cluster, it turned into an Afghan National Army training base. It was run by the Turks, and there's like a small group of Greeks there too. And the Turks and the Greeks traditionally don't get along. So it's like a compound within the compound. So there's an engineer resource park, ERP, and it's just full of that stuff. And because they were closing Ghazni down, they wanted to move it to Bagram. So that was my task, to move it to Bagram. So we ended up going over there, got a bunch of different contractors, and it was really funny because I left my rifle down at Leatherneck, so I was up there with just my pistol. Traditionally, like in Kosovo and also in Afghanistan, whoever's carrying the pistol is in charge. That's usually the officer. So my whole section wanted to go. For one thing, I'd gone over there to kind of scope the place out, and I ate at the Turkish dining facility, and they have awesome food. They had a really good chef it was a Turkish guy who lived in Germany, and they imported him and brought him in to cook the food. It's really good. And I got back there and said, guys, you have to get over there and eat some of that food. It's really good. So my whole section, besides the American Lieutenant Colonel Biscuit, went over there, and some of these guys, I never see them with their rifles. They all got their rifles out, including Lieutenant Colonel Blobble with his German rifle, which is really cool looking. And so, but I'm going there with my pistol, and everyone looks at me, and Colonel Blobble says, "You take care of it." So I got to explain the job to the different guys, and they spoke English. That was part of the deal. You have to speak English, and they did different proposals. And and then me and Colonel Blobble looked at with their different proposals, said, okay, we recommend you do this one. The one you don't recommend is this one because this is the cheapest one. I really don't think they're going to do a particularly good job. And that's exactly who the powers that be picked. We didn't have final say. Oh. And then so Colonel Blobble had a cell phone. I did not. But every time they would call, he would hand the phone to me to deal with them. And I don't want to say I'm going to do a war crime, but I really wanted to shoot at least one of these guys in the leg. It wasn't worth my stripes or the jail time or the prison time or the loss of pension, but man, oh man. Now, anyway, but they finally moved all that stuff to Bagram, and so I did that. And, got through, I did one inspection while I was still there, just because I just wanted to get out of the office and everything like that. And I did it, I think, with Brummett and a couple of the LTs, and came back and then started transitioning. The unit that was going to replace this came in, and CJ Inge said, hey, Llewellyn worked out really good. So they told the incoming unit from Louisiana, we want a senior NCO, who's a 12 Charlie, with a security clearance, who's not an idiot, to basically do what I did. So that was Sergeant First Class Brian LaBeouf. And and then occasionally I go down to Leatherneck because I still had to qualify, so I still had to shoot and get my shots and stuff like that. So when they were coming in, I came down, met up with Brian, and actually it was really funny. They had I said, Llewellyn, we have a Llewellyn. So then it's Sergeant E5 Llewellyn, and I finally found him in the mess. Like, hey, Sergeant Llewellyn. He's like, first he looked at my rank. I said, hey, I've been looking for you. He looked at my rank first, like, oh crap. Oh, he saw my name. Oh, okay.
Spelled the same and everything.
Spelled the same and everything. He's from California, but serving in the Southern unit. I'm from the South, serving in the California unit. That was funny. And so I got Brian, older guy like me. I say older. He's like my age. I was 45, so I was 45. And got him up there. Same thing, he had no orders, and they were going to make this guy live in the transit tents for the 6 months or the 9 months he was going to be there. I was like, that's utter crap. And then I was told that I could give up my spot because I was in the actual buildings because I was able to weasel. Thank you, Jim. Jim weaseled me in and got me an actual space there. So I gave Brian my spot, and I lived in transits for the 3-4 days. We were doing the handover. Maybe it was a week. I don't know. I think it was less than a week. And I could have just kept my place then, but then I would just left him in the crap tents in the summer, in the winter. Heck with that. I mean, I'm going home. I'll stand on my head for a week. I'm going home. So anyway, Brian really appreciated that.
You were part of the transition then. You had to hand over.
Yeah, there's always a handover. There's always, you don't just, they're here today and we leave the same day. There's always
overlap.
Overlap, yeah, that's
right seat, left seat. So every kind, and I do that with my civilian job, teaching people how to answer the phones and talk to people. I mean, people can answer the phone and talk with, doing my job. So they watch me for a day, talking to people, answering questions, updating the system, everything like that, and then I hand it off to them. Where I'm still in the car, but now I'm in the passenger side, and they drive. So the same thing. So I showed Brian how to do it, and then he did it, and that was it.
And you just check off on it, like, he can do the job. He's not.
Yeah, and then a couple of days after Christmas, 2012, hopped on a plane with my stuff, went back to Leatherneck and started turning in gear and doing the detransition, and we flew out. I'm good with dates. January 6th, flew out of Afghanistan, landed in Kyrgyzstan, that place, and then I was really hoping to be on American soil on the 9th, and we landed, and because that's my dad's birthday. That's also my late mother's birthday. We both had the same birthday, 3 years apart. So January 9th's a big deal. Plus I landed in Kabul, and I'm sorry, landed in Fort Dix, my favorite place, Fort Dix. I did get injured over in Afghanistan playing football. Every Saturday, our section did no contact football, no contact, and some knucklehead who I'm not friends with Facebook, like a lot of these guys, knocked me down, and I hit pretty hard because it's just concrete and a little bit of astroturf on top of it. That's the soccer field that we play, no contact football. And after it happened, I realized I couldn't actually lift my arm past here. And then I was like, oh no. And they were sending people home for anything. And I've made some dumb decisions, and that I look back and go, what happened if something happened to me? But I sucked it up. I didn't tell anyone, and eventually it got to the point where I could move it some more and everything. So toward the end, where I was in Afghanistan, I told First Sergeant Thompson, I said, hey Top, just letting you know, I injured my shoulder. I need to have it looked at. And he said, fine, we'll look at it back at the States, because obviously we're not going to stick around this place for you. Sounds good. So get to Fort Dix. So I have to stay there. Everyone else, besides all the other people with medical issues, Jonesy, and of course they put me in charge of the people left behind. Thanks. So some of us are going to Fort Lewis, some of them are going to different places, and so I'm stuck at Fort Dix in January. Everyone else goes home after a few days. I'm still stuck there, and I'm not that far from North Carolina, and I kept trying to say, hey, can I get a pass to go see my dad? No. And toward the end, it's like, you're leaving tomorrow, but you can have a pass now.
Yeah.
F you people. Anyway, so I go to Fort Lewis, Washington. At least I'm back on the same coast, time zone as Tish for the first time in a year. They have a rule. As soon as you get there, you have to stay there 2 weeks before you get a pass to go home. Because basically what happened, people would arrive there, they'd go on pass, they'd go home, get obliterated, drunk, DUIs, arrested, dead.
Not coming back.
And it doesn't matter what your rank is, because people are stupid. People make poor decisions. So it didn't matter what my rank was. They did the same thing for officers. So I just sit there for 2 weeks and trying to get a schedule to have my shoulder looked at. Finally got home about time for my birthday, so mid-February. Got to stay home for 4 days. Tish had surgery on one of her wrists during that time, so I got to take care of her. I got to see my kids. It was actually on the news. That was kind of cool. And then went back, and then they said, I finally got an MRI. I have bruised tendons in my arms. I feel it. I can feel it right now. But it doesn't stop me from doing push-ups. Doesn't stop me from doing martial arts. And they said, you can either stay here and get rehabbed or go home and deal with it with the VA. Send me home. Get me out of here. So I finally landed back home in March. I knew I wasn't going to go right back to work, but I still had 2 kids in diapers. So I did about 3 weeks of staying at home, and because we didn't know when we were going home, Tish and I didn't really have anything planned out. So she went to work, and I stayed home dealing with the kids in diapers for 3 weeks. And I was like, "Hi Terry, I'll be back to work on Monday." And I went back to work.
Right back to your civilian job.
Yeah. So there was no decompression.
No, I took 3 weeks off, but no, there was no decompression.
Yeah.
Because I was dealing with Gracie and TJ and their diapers, and I hadn't really,
and you hadn't done any of that because you'd been gone for a year.
Been gone for a year. TJ, because TJ was 3, because 2010, yeah, so it's 2013. Gosh, we're at an hour and 24. I think I can knock it out for another 10 minutes and just be done. There's,
sure,
okay.
Go for it.
Or you can pull the plug. So I'm back. So that's my last deployment. Gracie, when I got home, asked asked me if I was ever going to deploy again. I told her, no, I won't. And I kept my word. I figured I've done enough. And
3 deployments.
And
at
at that point, you kind of had a little more say in what you were doing, right? Or was that time for?
Yeah, well, I'd already been in 25, 26 years, so I could retire anytime. I have my retirement. Every year I stay later, just more retirement points, a better retirement, more time in uniform, more money.
Okay.
Tish has always been super supportive of me in the military. But that was ultimately her call, because we know a lot of guys their wives will tell them, you're done, get out. It's the Army or me. And I don't want to be divorced.
Yeah.
I don't want to be divorced. But Tish was very supportive. So I come back, I end up being acting first sergeant for a couple of annual trainings, because when we left for Afghanistan, I was a junior E7. I had the least points, the least time and grade. By the time we got back, everyone either moved on or retired.
So you were
yeah. I went from the bottom to the top, but I still hadn't had the school to get promoted. So that took a few years to get senior leader course. It was interesting because, I always joked earlier the minimum was my maximum, but the perspective I had, some of the great soldiers I had, Rusty, Melissa, I had a couple of sergeants underneath me who always went above and beyond, always gave it 150%. And I thought, how can I be a slacker? How can I be a minimum guy with people like this? I need to be a maximum guy to at least be their equals. They inspired me. A lot of times hires are supposed to inspire the junior people inspired me. So I finally they finally got me a school in North Dakota in February 2015, like minus 30 degrees. Got to school, and I kind of looked at what it would take to exceed standards, because you get your 1059 report card for like when you went to PLDC.
Warrior Leadership Course.
Yeah, meet standards. There's exceed standards, meet standards, and they can only give like 20% of the class that exceeds, meets, and then didn't meet standards really sucks. So there's like 4 boxes. There's like different degrees of not meeting standards. Slightly there, get rid of this guy.
Yeah.
But I never got that. Anyway, I looked at the requirements. I'm going to exceed standards. And I did. I got 100% on all the written tests. I got my presentations were really good. Being probably one of the older guys there, and someone who had deployed, who had been an acting first sergeant, you had experience, and plus working in Kabul and that much higher. That's basically working for the chief of staff for Afghanistan. So that was a 3-star command that I was working underneath. I was a very junior cog.
But you saw a lot.
Yeah, and most of these guys didn't. So the only thing that kept me from getting honor grad, I was the top student, was I had to do an alternate event on the physical fitness because my back was still sore.
Otherwise, you would have been.
I still got the highest rank. I got coins. I got a special certificate of accomplishment on top of my regular diploma from the school. Plus, I got an extra one coined by the colonel. It was actually pretty cool.
That's awesome.
And I was a class
that is
leader.
Cool.
I was a class leader. I wasn't just a guy there.
You weren't just another warm body.
I was just another warm body. I helped lead that class. Now, the instructors were fellow NCOs. They're my rank. There's no one outranked me, but they're the instructors. I'm the student. They're in charge. But no, really cool guys. And it turns out some of them were, okay, backtrack. So when we were in Afghanistan, first we were under a Texas Reserve unit. I'm going to forget their name. Task Force Lone Star. I didn't like their commander. I didn't like their first sergeant. Some of the other guys were fine. I'm not first sergeant. I didn't like their sergeant major. I didn't like either one of those guys. And then they eventually went out, and then we got replaced by, I think, Wisconsin or Michigan, one of those Task Force Warhammer. or hammered. And then their route clearance guys were from North Dakota. Their sapper company, sapper company was from North Dakota. So, and they actually lost a couple of guys early December before we left doing route clearance stuff. So those instructors knew those. It was a sergeant and a specialist. That's like the sergeant first class. So this is like a senior sergeant and a junior enlisted guy were killed. And those instructors knew those guys. Because, National Guard engineers, that's a small community.
It is a very small community.
I mean, California is a small community. Think about North Dakota.
Yeah.
So anyway, so I came back. As a matter of fact, as soon as I got my 1059, I faxed it to the home unit, and they got me on the promotion list. They got me, basically, my promotion packet was all ready to go. That was like the last piece of puzzle to get going. And then I did annual training. I think by then, First Sergeant Applin was the first sergeant. I didn't have to be acting first sergeant. I could actually do my own regular gig. And then before AT was even finished, I got a call from the sergeant major who from our battalion said, "Do not answer your phone from anyone from Southern California," because he was going to offer me an E8 position. And I said, "Don't worry, Sergeant Major. I made sure that the furthest they can give me an offer that I have to accept. Because if you decline that, if they call me from San Diego saying, 'Hey, we got a spot for you,' and I say decline, I go to the bottom of the list." But because when I did my promotion packet, I put a $300 mile limit, because I knew that would get me to Sacramento, that would get me to Santa Rosa, but it wouldn't get me to San Diego or Camp Roberts or some other
place where you'd have to drive.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So by the time AT ended, I already had the offer, and that was my last time with the 132nd. I went down to Santa Rosa. I was the intelligence sergeant in the S2 intelligence section as a master sergeant. Got promoted to master sergeant, but that was just a placeholder because I was going to replace the company first sergeant in about 3 months. So that was just a placeholder. It was kind of cool. We did go on vacation right after I got promoted, and my wife and I drove from North Carolina to Fort Benning, Georgia, to watch my nephew graduate infantry.
Right.
Yeah, and so I got to wear my master sergeant rank in Fort Benning. It was kind of cool.
See how everyone treated you. Yeah.
They ignored me. I mean, it was fine. Except my sister ran out of gas on the way out, so I got to do traffic control, and I'm standing there. Sorry, I'm not gonna hit you. Get over to the side. That was fun. And then I became the real first sergeant. I did 3.5 years herding the cats. Headquarters company is a different gig because you have all kinds of officers and staffers and full timers who don't work for me. That's a whole podcast just about that. So one thing my unit did was we were the task force for the 2017 Santa Rosa fires.
Oh.
And that was pretty. Bad. Yes, bad. 2 weeks down there, we ended up building a base in Roanoke Park. The Air Force engineers came and built these kind of Alaskan framed half-dome tents where you can comfortably cram about 20 people in, and we were cramming 30 people in because we don't care about comfort. But I was the mayor, so whenever there's a base, there's a mayor.
Yeah.
Who's in charge of making sure everything works.
Oh,
and so I got, then Major Ricks texted me, "You're now the mayor, congratulations, do not rule with an iron fist." So I got to be the mayor, and dealing with the Air Force security guys, the chem guys, and their craptacular first sergeant, who I hate her guts, and then the MPs who were pretty cool. And I thought I'd probably get along better with the chem guys than the MPs, but she had not deployed. So she didn't kind of understand FOB tax, a FOB, forward operating base. The tax is people. I need people to fill these generators. I need people to clean the showers. I need people to clean up the area. But they were working. She just refused to do it. And her captain was kind of weak sauce. And but the Marines, not the Marines, the MPs were pretty cool. Thank you for Sergeant Camacho. Now Sergeant Major Camacho is probably retired. Good guy. We got along pretty good. We understood each other. I lost about 20 pounds. I actually, when I started, by the time I was done, my uniform was just hanging off of me because I kept walking around.
Put a lot of steps in.
In 2 weeks, within those 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I just and then there I am, a 50-something-year-old first sergeant, putting fuel into generators because I can't get the darn chem guys to do it. Now, occasionally, the young soldiers coming by, oh, let me help you with that, first sergeant, and everything like that, because I'm still rocking the diamond. I did 3.5 years of that, did some ATs, had 3 different commanders, ups and downs, made the difference for a lot of soldiers in a positive way. Got some people who hated my guts because I expected NCOs to take initiative and do their jobs, and apparently some people have problems with that. Blank you. I did 3.5 years, then done, and then first Sergeant Major Lunsford said, hey, you got a couple of different options here. 3.5 years is enough. Time to move on. And I was happy to move on. I was like, okay, done herding cats. One was a unit that was going to end up going to Guantanamo. I was like, no. And then their state headquarters. So I talked to a lieutenant colonel there, and he said, hey, I need a guy just like you. Come on down. So I went down there, and I spent the rest of my career at state headquarters. I became a master sergeant again. It's the same pay grade, but 99 less problems. I don't know. I keep pointing here because that's where my rank was. So it's 3 stripes up, 3 stripes down, no diamond in the middle. And I did fun stuff. During the 2020 civil disturbance, once again, I'm pulling guard duty because the full-timers couldn't do it because the full-timers were doing their full-time job running the guard. They have a bunch of California Cal Guard people who, it says California here instead of U.S. Army, they're not allowed to carry weapons. A lot of them are ex-cops and they were carrying weapons. I was actually concealed carrying, so I was actually first and last time in my career I was carrying a civilian weapon, on my belt, hidden, and carrying a rifle. So, but they knew it and they said that's fine with us. They didn't have a problem with it. But just they didn't have the bodies to do it, and because I was deployed, and they already had a started first class Marine in charge of it. Thank God, because I didn't want to deal with it. And I just, I helped him out. A couple of times I used my extra weight to take care of a couple of problems, my extra rank, I should say. Okay. Take care of a couple of problems. I helped him out, and I made sure I wasn't a pain in the ass. I did that for a few days, and then Colonel Espinosa was losing his mind. Said, "What are you doing with my master sergeant? I need that guy." So they finally dialed it down. It's just like security. State headquarters at the time they moved. They actually have a new one. I've never been there. It's just an office building in Rancho Cordova. It's just on the street. They have Jersey barriers. They only have like one entrance, but they weren't even checking vehicles coming in. But they still wanted us to, guard the place. But you're not checking vehicles coming in. Anyway, I brought that up. Anyway,
they could just sneak things in the vehicles.
Yeah, you could do all kinds of stuff. And then, trying to find stuff because facilities, J9 facilities, they like if this was an armory and your toilets need to be replaced, you need to remodel on your kitchen or your toilet or your bathroom. That's where the money. That's all full time. There's not much for the weekend guys to do part time. We did have a survey guy that we stole over from the 579th. Great guy, and got him promoted. So he would go out and do surveys down at Camp Roberts, down San Luis Obispo, and I'd go there as his assistant, basically helping him out learning the surveys. Not that it does me any good, but also being in charge of the whole operation and the safety and everything like that. Plus, I know everybody. And again, using the weight of my rank, no one's going to tell me boo. Very, even high-ranking officers, they look at Master and oh, this guy should know what he's doing. As long as I'm not drooling on myself, they're going to just take what I say as gospel. And I kept doing that, and then I kept getting poked to apply for disability because I definitely had issues with my back, with my hearing, and I finally did. And I thought I'd maybe get 20%. I got 40. Hearing, back, nerve pain in both legs.
So what's the difference between 20 and 40%?
the difference is if you're over 33%, and everything's in increments of 10.
Okay.
But 33% is the cutoff. I can't get paid for drill.
Oh, so at that point it's like,
yeah, I'm driving down to Sacramento
for free,
for retirement points. And I looked at that and I said, how long am I going to do this? And then by January, I'd kind of made up my mind. And I said, I'll stay till May. May gets me 36 years. 36 years. That's enough for anybody. And I did, and I wrapped it up. And May was my last drill. And I haven't missed it. I've missed the people. I will tell you, there is the day we're filming this, last night, the Senate approved a new Secretary of Defense. I told Tish I want to re-up. I really like this guy, but it's a joke. I'm a 58-year-old diabetic with a bad back. They don't need me. They don't need me, you know.
Yeah.
But people and I miss the people, but know what I'm getting here in this very building with these very people here. All the stuff I like about the military and none of the stuff I don't. I have shared purpose, have a little bit of physical activity, I have a rank structure, I'm mentoring people, I'm being mentored by Blaine Court and by you, you know, the other black belts. So all the cool stuff about the Army, you know, besides, you know, shooting guns and going to weird places and stuff like that.
You can shoot guns though, but
yeah, and
like,
I've
talking about bombs and stuff.
I've already done all that stuff, but the spiritual, it's called, you know, the spiritual part of it is right here in this dojo. Is right here in this dojo, and I started as a no belt when I was a first sergeant. I was a first sergeant when I started here. You know, being instructed by teenagers, by Sensei Meyer's sons, you know. Yeah. And then Sensei Myers at the time, who wasn't Sensei at the time, Sensei Long when he was here in the dojo, and Blaine and Sensei Court, of course.
Talk about emptying your cup.
Yeah. It was a big old mug. It had said First Sergeant on it. I dumped it out, but it was good for me, and even toward the end, we had resilience training, everything like that. We had one of the last ones I had at JFHQ, and the guy doing it said, "Anyone here have a goal? Anyone working on something?" I looked around and said, "In a year, I'm going to be a black belt." I got to talk about the dojo, and I talked about how my physical health and my mental health, my spiritual health has been helped by this. And people won't say that. There's a lot of people there. A lot of people there with patches right here. If you see an Army soldier with a patch on the right sleeve, that means they deployed to a war zone. Doesn't mean they were in battle,
but it means they were there.
They were there, and the fact is that on my very last physical fitness test, I didn't need a profile. I gutted it out. I think I said this in a prayer part of mine. As cheesy as it sounds, it's true. It's true. Black belt's not going to quit. As I'm doing that last quarter mile, half mile, black belt's not going to quit. And I was advanced brown belt at the time.
Yeah.
But isn't that funny how that you were literally, that was your last PT test, right? You said?
Yeah.
Last PT test at 55, and you, because of martial arts, it's almost like you'd come full circle in a way. Back when you first joined the military, you weren't on profile. You were just eligible to take a PT test like normal.
Yeah.
And now you've circled back at the end of your career and you're not on profile anymore.
Yeah,
that's a beautiful circle.
As being on profile for 15 years, and I actually had a lieutenant colonel, because I texted out to the group, I just passed by, you know, I let everyone know, darn right I did. And he said, "You may have broken your profile." I said, "Sir, my profile expired. My profile expired, so instead of getting a new one, I just did it.
How cool is that?
I mean, what are they going to do? Kick me out? That's kind of my goal, you know.
To retire at that point, right?
Yeah, I did everything. I did everything I needed to do. One thing I did not do is I never applied to the Sergeant Major's Academy. That would have required 2+ years worth of schoolwork every weekend, grinding it out, not spending time with my kids. And I would have to have graduated by the time I turned 56 to be eligible for promotion. My very achieving, high achiever wife is not happy that I never did it, but I'm happy. I'm fine.
What a reversal. That's such a, you would think it would be the other way around. Like,
you've known her longer than me, so she there's different leadership strengths, and she's an achiever. That's like in her top 5. She that's not one of mine. I'm more of a get along, to go along. I'm responsible. As my kids get older, you know, this time is super important to me, because in 5 years, they're both over 18. In 5 years, TJ will be 15 next month. So in 3 years, they're all going to be over 18. All my kids are, you know, you just had one turn 18.
Yeah.
So what's more important? And I made EA. Most people who saw me when I first started, that guy's not going to last. That guy's not going to do anything. Wrong. I did a lot. I did it for 36 years. I got to do stuff very few people got to do, you know. But here I am now. I mean, yeah, I joke because Secretary Hegseth seems like a really cool dude, and I like what he's planning. I want to be a part of that, but my time is done.
What a perfect.
Speaking of time is being done.
Yeah, we're gonna put the brakes on here. Friends, if you've been with us this long, thank you very much. We appreciate all of your comments and all of your just being there along with us on the ride. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have a website, formlesspod.com, with plenty of merch and other information and activities. Catch you next week. Yeah, stretch. There we go.
It's still going.